Hi, lovies. This is Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. We are wrapping up September 2023, and we are soon to be entering October of 2023. And for those of you who have been following us since 2021, we have touched on many subjects about spirituality, occultism, witchcraft, cultures, religions, and all that paranormal stuff. And I have spoken on here in regards to past lives, making contact with angels, demons, and other worldly, entities. And I know there's a saying about, how history repeats itself. And that's when we're referring to obviously cultures, politics, and just ways we, teach our children and, just a lot of, systems that are set up in society. I just wanted to share this story with you about how it is spiritually bound for us to repeat history. Not always for the better, not always for the worse. So for those of you, like I said, who have followed me, this is going to be one of those timeline jumping type situations. So here we go. So I come from a very culturally eclectic background, right? I am African American. I can trace my roots back to Nigeria, Morocco, and actually my grandfather on my mother's side is of Israeli origin. I do have Irish/Scottish background as well, considering my last name is McKinney. It is a battle between whether that is Irish or Scottish, but the Scots pretty much own the name McKinney, which actually, a side note, means pagan god of fire, which is pretty interesting. And not to mention that I do have German and Native American in my ancestry as well. So, of course, before Christianity and a lot of mainstream religions indoctrinated a lot of our ancestors, we did, resort to sun worship, nature, and all the things natural and spiritual. And this is a culture that you can see that is consistent with the Native American cultures. It seems to be something that has not changed throughout history, that Native Americans have continued their culture from very, very start to finish, even until now. They still believe in the same gods and cycles and all that. So the point I'm trying to make about past lives and timeline jumping is that for all of us who did in fact study, like mainstream American history, there was a time during the Andrew Jackson reign and here in America where there was a special thing called the Trail of Tears. Now, of course, it was not a great time for the Native Americans at all. In fact, it was the removal of the Native Americans and, in fact, the genocide of the entire Native American race and culture in America, pretty much to minimize their power, voice, and ability to either live comfortably or even be considered humans or even counted, right? So in my lineage, I happen to be of Choctaw Native American culture and history and bloodline, right? And the Choctaws, who were generally in like the Southwest, were one of the first Native American cultures, which were like the third or fourth largest, that were actually the first to be extinct or exterminated or, minimized. And in order for them to survive, they had to mix with other Native American nations. It is pretty common knowledge, but I will get to how this ties into my current life and how it repeated itself. So one of the particular Native American nations that the Choctaw had to mix with were, in fact, the Cherokee. And the Cherokee is known for the most famous and most talked about Native American tribe, right? So The Choctaw had to mix with the Cherokee in order to survive. Of course, there was no pure Choctaw blood, I would say, after about maybe 2 or 3 generations. But this was for survival, and of course, it was for the Cherokee survival as well. It benefited the Cherokee more, but nonetheless, the Choctaw were in fact an ally in helping them survive their nation as well. So how does this tie into how I relived this past life as history repeated itself? Well, for those of you who have been following, I am divorced, and my ex-husband happens to have ties to pure Cherokee nations, just as I have ties to pure Choctaw nations. Now, it wouldn't be like, oh, this is just a coincidence, this is just, metaphor, whichever. No. In my family of my 2 other siblings, I'm the only one of my other siblings that had children. So that means the McKinney name was dying. We were the last of the McKinneys. And in my ex-husband's family, he was the one of 2 sons, and was the only one to have children. Or his brother at the time did not have any children and was very fearful of having the Dickerson name ever surviving into another generation. So now we have me and this man, my ex-husband, with nowhere to go, no offspring of any kind, right? Living together, no real family, and we end up having 3 kids together. And one of my kids has my last name, and the other 2 have his last name, which is interesting because now we can expand upon our culture, our bloodline. Because if it wasn't for the other, we weren't able to do that. Now, does this story come off as strong as you thought it was going to? Well, think about it. Think about how we found ourselves in a situation, again, apart from our ancestors, right? Decades or even 100 years ago, in the same dilemma of having nowhere to go, in hard times, being without anyone, needing to survive somehow, with really hardly any other prospects. Not to say that I didn't have prospects or he didn't have prospects. Obviously, in modern time, we all have plenty of prospects. But what are the odds of the 2 people from the same 2 nations coming together again, repeating history, in order for us, right, as a whole, or as a culture, to survive? And we kind of christened what we had done after we had realized we had relived this. So me and my ex-husband are aware of this, that we kind of replayed the Trail of Tears and, made it better the same way they made it better in the past. And we kind of christened the situation by naming our middle child, which is our only daughter, Cheyenne, which is a combination of both Cherokee and Choctaw, and obviously very southwestern culture. Is or was a very popular name at the time, and is, I believe, a capital of one of the states, or a city in one of the states, where Native Americans are, where they frequent. So I just wanted to give you this story and to see what you thought about it, to see if there are things in our current life, in our current time now, that are repeating themselves over and over again. Like I said, for our benefit, for our betterment, just because this is how we've always survived. How much history do we know? How much history do we want to repeat? Right? Like, how much of our successes are we not aware of? How many failures are we not aware of, so we can potentially avoid them in the future and then create more of those victories in the future? Because even though me and my ex-husband are no longer together, I still consider our children as a victory. Just the same way as the Choctaw considered, combining with the Cherokee as a victory in order to survive and keep going. What are your thoughts, and how are these types of things showing up in your life? How many stories are you repeating that maybe have happened maybe centuries ago, and you are either reliving or even perfecting on, right? What things do you want to continue? Just wanted to give you that, just throw it out there and just show you what an amazing place this universe is. And to think of the things that we can learn from what in hindsight would look like a mistake, but because divorce is considered a failed marriage, but if you think about it, the children that came from it, now the families that can continue their lineages and their cultures and their beliefs. Is it really a failure, or is it really in its own way a major victory? Repeating wins over and over again, and how can we continue those to happen? All right, my loves, I am gonna roll out this again. Like and subscribe, follow if you can. We have Patreon now. We are on Threads, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. We're everywhere. So again, this is me, Christina, with Karma's Eye Psychic here on Universal Spirit Podcast, and I will see you again in the next episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.